Ladies and gentlemen, today's episode brought to you by Durango Coca-Cola. No, I'm super excited. Now I'll really start for real this time. Ladies and gentlemen, the Paul Roberts.
Oh, you're talking it up, Ben.
Well, I got to tell you. So for everybody listening, first, so you're the vice president of Durango Coke.
Correct.
Which is why we have our great Dasani water today.
That's right.
I appreciate you for that so much. But you're also an ultra runner. You're a father. You're a community leader. You and I sit on the Fort Lewis College Skyhawks Advisory Council or whatever the whole name is for that group. Yeah, for the athletics.
Good group of guys over there.
Great group of guys. So I want to share a story with to just kind of tee it up because I'm so excited to pick your brain. It's been so fun. Well, I was telling my team before you got here that at one point we ran a marathon on a treadmill together, which was a unique experience in and of itself. But I don't know if you remember or not. So we were doing the video project for that award that Durango Coke won. Yeah. I think that was maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3. I don't remember. Do you remember when that was?
It was 2 years ago. So yeah, 2 years ago, it was the Facing the Storm Award that we did for our team. Just having, there's so much that went into it from a team aspect during COVID, all hands on deck, not knowing what direction the business was going to go one day after the next, And it really took everybody to make it happen. And so
it was so cool to be able to, so that project alone was so fun. And it was great because that's when I really got to know you. Like we were driving around together. Met. Yeah. But what I'm going to tell you is, and I my wife now knows where to put some of the blame, at least, is what I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
So that project started and you were kind of limping. You were kind of like doing the slow walk around. And at the time I had ran a few road marathons and I'm like, in my mind, I'm this runner guy. And I started talking to you and you're telling me that you had just ran a 100K, I think the Saturday before, and we met on a Monday. Like it was pretty, in my mind at least, it might as well have been yesterday. And you were kind of like moving slow and whatever and kind of, walking around. And I got to talk to you a little bit about that throughout the day while we were working and, doing shoots and driving and whatever. And I don't know how much of this you even remember, but you told me your exact words were start with 100K. Like because I was telling you that I think at the time I'd call it ultra curious. The idea was intriguing to me, but I still hadn't even signed up for a race or anything. And here you are like 2 days after a 100K working with us. And I remember thinking like, how this guy's Superman, like how in the world is he doing that? And you told me to start with 100K. And that was part of, there was a few influences that like late spring, early summer that got me to sign up for my first one, but you were one of the main ones. And I don't know if I've ever told you that or not. So I have to blame you and thank you for nudging me for doing it. But what race was that?
It was Black Canyon.
Was it Black Canyons?
Yeah, that was your last one.
Which I just ran in February. So that would have been 2 years ago, February.
Yeah.
Is when that project would have been. Yeah, and then I ran my first that September. So like 6 months after Palmer Lake, the 24-hour one, I made it to 100K. So thanks for the tip there. But no, it was fun. It was a fun little anecdote or a cool like insight into your life.
See, I don't think I told you to start with 100K.
You did.
I think I told you to start with 100 miles.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I must have misheard. Yeah. So that's where I want to start is I've been so impressed with you. I've been so impressed getting to know you on multiple different levels. It's like I mentioned earlier, but seriously, your ultra running, your business leadership, and also your parenting, your family leadership that I get to see, through your social media and your Strava posts with your family and stuff. And so anyway, I'm so excited at the opportunity to pick your brain. So all of that to tee up the long-winded intro. Do you mind? Tell me about your story about how you ended up in Durango. Cause I believe, it was somewhat recent, right?
Yeah. So my family, I should say, I drug our family out here 3 years ago.
Kicking and screaming.
Never even knowing that Durango had a spot on the map, honestly. I have been in the Coke business for about 15 years. This year will be year 16. And, funny story, I won't go too deep into it, but started off as a merchandiser. Life happens. It happened to me, and I needed a new career path. My oldest at the time was 8 years old. And so I had to make a shift. I couldn't do the traveling sales anymore. So started off as a merchandiser for Coke and finally worked my way up to vice president position, working for the Maples here at Durango Coke.
Wow. So you had an 8-year-old son. You were well into your career. It sounds like you were doing outside sales, like traveling sales. And why merchandiser? What I would imagine, you're trying to support a family, and I'm not like down talking merchandisers by any means, but it seems like that must have been a little bit of that was a shift, obviously.
It was a huge shift. And one thing about the beverage industry, and I'd probably correlate this to a lot of industries in our line of work, be it chips or whatever, when you think of like grocery store type commodities, a lot of people start from that ground up. We all start somewhere, right? And especially like within the beverage industry, my counterpart, Dave Gallegos, he started off as merchandiser, delivery driver. So many people, it's that career path. You work your way in, you get the foot in the door, and there's so many opportunities. You just keep your head down and keep doing the work, and honestly, good things happen.
And 15 years later, you could be a VP. Well, that's interesting because at the time though in your life, like that when you moved into the beverage industry, was that a step back, a step down, or a step sideways from outside sales?
When I first started it was Swire Coke, and so they're a pretty large bottler out in the West. When I first started with them, honestly, I just needed to change my life.
Okay.
And did I apply to be a merchandiser thinking that was the gig I was going to get? Not at all.
The dream job.
But knowing there was opportunity, that's where I went. Initially I applied for like a sales type position, calling on, grocery stores or convenience stores, things of that sort. That was a phone. But
if it rings, I'll find you. I'm just kidding.
Things of that sort. So, I more or less was looking for opportunity and somewhere I could, have a career with a strong brand and continue to grow.
And then there was an opportunity to come to Durango with the Maple family and join this group. Walk me through that, because now at that point, how many kids do you have?
3.
3. So now you've got 3 kids, and I don't know their ages, but they're older.
Yeah.
And you're looking at moving a whole uprooting an entire family, moving to a different state, a place that, I think as you put it, didn't even have a dot on the map or whatever. Yeah. Walk me through that chapter.
So we were vacationing. At the time of my career with Swire, I was a channel manager. So I had oversight of like our military business, our ski resorts, colleges and universities. And anyways, we were actually riding the Hiawatha Trail. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Amazing.
Hiawatha
Trail. So it's this 15-mile stretch of old railway, I guess you could call it. The railroad's been removed. Anyways, you can ride your bike down it.
Cool.
Anyways, we were up there, and my previous vice president, help me think of the word, Ben, someone I look up to.
A mentor?
Yeah. Biggest mentor. He had called me up and
we should play, hey. What's the game for that? Not charades or...
guess this word.
Yeah.
Looks like, sounds like.
Right. But anyway, he called you.
So he called me and he's like, hey, would you ever consider moving? And I'm like, well, it depends on where. The desert, like Phoenix area, definitely not. I wanted to be somewhere, in the mountains, close to proximity to like a ski resort, to trails, mountain biking, gravel cycling, lakes, rivers, streams, you name it.
Check.
Well, but I still didn't know what or where Durango was.
Never
other
even
than
heard of
it's
it.
Four Corners. So a lot of people, I would think a lot of people like myself think of Four Corners and I think of like kind of deserty
Yeah.
Moab type land, you know, but then you get in Durango and you get these big massive mountain peaks, right? So that's kind of where it all started. And he put me in contact with Meredith Maple, CEO of Durango Coke now. And things kind of started moving along. You know, I brought my family out here. I actually came out, I would have been like October 3 years ago. Brought my mountain bike, brought my gravel bike. I'm like, I'm going to check this place out, you know? So anyways, after that, I had to bring my family out. So Sierra and the kids, make sure everyone could get adjusted.
Yeah.
And this was somewhere they wanted to live.
And how old are the kids at this time?
So, Asher. So I got 3. A 23-year-old. He's going to Montana State, Bozeman, and then Asher's 11. So he would have been 9, I guess. Yeah.
So was your oldest at home, or was he out of the house at 20?
He's been going to school. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's been up in Montana for quite some time.
But 2 of them were looking at moving. 2 of the kids.
Forcefully moving.
Right. Well, that's what I'm curious about is what that was like for the family.
It was a total change. You know, this was the first time that, you know, we had lived in a smaller community. My wife, she's from a smaller area up in northern Utah. I've always lived in, you know, larger cities, be it like Salt Lake or something like that. But it was definitely an adjustment from the population base.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, whoa, you're pulling me away from Costco's and Targets, you know.
Right. Yes. And Chipotle and
that was not a check.
Right. Yeah. That's in the con column.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, so brought her out and there were a few other kinks that we had to work out as far as her work goes. She'd been working remote, but now she's going into her employer and asking, hey, well, now I'm going to need to move out of state for my husband's work. And, you know, it was wild. I'm a spiritual guy. But there were never any red flags.
No
It
doubt.
was like, no, you shouldn't make this move. You know, I think from, you know, checking all the spectrums, mental, spiritual, physical, whatever it be, it was just lining up for us.
Yeah. It's interesting. So I don't know if you know this or not, but I grew up in the Salt Lake area, in Cottonwood Heights. And I'm the oldest of 4. And when I was 16, we moved to Colorado for my dad's job. And at the time for the kids, for all of us, I mean, I can't do, because it's funny. I've been in Durango now since 2009. So, you know, my roots here are deep, and we've got the kids, and then I experienced a cross-state move when I was a teenager with all the kids and whatever. And then I think about like what would ever happen if I needed to move my family, you know, out of Durango, and the significance I now understand. Like as a parent, I got now the kids' perspective, you know, like what it was like for me to move. But when I look back in hindsight on that, it was the best thing we ever did. It definitely made us closer as a family, especially that first summer. Like we had, you know, I had no friends. And some of my most important growth moments happened then. Like I remember, so we moved, and then I wanted to be on the football team. So I, you know, showed up to the football school hadn't even started yet. And I'm like doing the football workouts and stuff. And I don't know anybody. And you talk about like so far out of the comfort zone and just terrified. But it's interesting. So I'm curious how your kids are doing now from the move, because when we moved across state, such a similar moment, you know, like we had to look at it all, like spiritually, financially, you know, health-wise, like all the reasons why. And my parents decided ultimately that the best thing to do was move to Colorado. And I'm so grateful for it, because it got me such cool life lessons and perspectives. And like, I don't know, it was a neat, with the benefit of hindsight only. At the time though, worst thing in the world. You know, you ask a 16-year-old what it's like to move away from all his friends and
in the middle of high school.
I mean, it was over.
Yeah.
But now I get to look back and I'm so grateful for it. What was it like for your family? Like Was it tough? Did your kids, were they sad? Did they trust you the whole time?
Trust, that's an interesting word. You know, there's a lot of trust, you know, from my wife to the kids, in myself.
Yeah.
We're uprooting the family. Not that it was 7 hours or whatever
But
from
still.
Salt Lake, but it is a big move. We'd never moved like that, But similar to what you were saying, I think every move comes with its own challenges. Being new to the area and trying to navigate your path and create a new social little circle of friends. But it's been good. The kids, they play piano, they ride mountain bikes. Asher does violin, dance. There's one thing that surprises me the most about Durango is as small of a community as it is. The different arts, musical arts, ballet type stuff, dancing. There's so much of it.
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah.
So it's not like I'd almost say that we've given them more opportunity for moving here, because it's not like you're fighting.
I was going to say
for some of these larger classes and to get kids in,
Yeah, it's such a good point. It's like there's technically less, or maybe I don't know, but it's like easier to get involved in the things you want to be involved in, maybe.
Yeah, totally.
Like it's less intimidating. I don't know, but I've observed the exact same thing here in Durango. Like if you want to be part of a community here, you can just go be part of it. And I think part of that's probably the demographic. Like everybody here is super welcoming, there's that. But then it's all accessible. I feel like more accessible than especially because I went from Cottman Heights, Utah, big suburbs, to Parker, Colorado, huge suburbs. And it's an interesting thing that you just brought up, because I've noticed that same exact thing. It's almost like there's more opportunity, even though there on paper isn't.
Yeah.
It's just more accessible, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
The mountain bike scene, I've watched it explode as of everybody over the years, right? I mean, you used to hit the trails years ago, right? And there wouldn't be all these mountain bikers and mountain biking, like high school classes and whatever else. But, circling back on that with, the riding that we can get Asher and Aspen in, be it through the rec center or Devo and some of these other classes, has just been amazing. To where prior to that, you're either waiting until high school or you're driving from Salt Lake up to Park City for some mountain biking class.
Right.
It just
and paying
wasn't
a fortune.
as relevant, being where we were living at.
Yeah.
And paying a fortune.
I'm paying a fortune, especially in Park City.
Yeah.
Whole nother conversation. But so that then marked your 13th year in the beverage industry?
Yeah. Yeah, just barely pushed over 12, so going on 13.
And that was for the job you have now, for the vice president job?
The vice president was new. I've been vice president for Coke here for 3 years now.
Tell me about that. Like, so now you've been with a Coke distributor for 13 years, right? If my math's right about there. Yeah. And we're living in a time now where you're familiar with everybody job hopping, and like there's all this stuff out there of, if you want to make money, you need to leave jobs more frequently. And
sure.
I see it all the time with my team. Don't tell anyone, but everybody wants they want the VP position in 13 months instead of 13 years. I'm curious, what's that been like to stick with an industry for that long and like kind of climb the ladder?
I've done so many different things with Coke that honestly I've never had a dull moment. There's not a day in my life that I can reflect back on and be like, what am I gonna do tomorrow?
You never felt stagnant?
Never. There's always something. And I had the opportunity to work in a lot of different segments within the business. I started off as a merchandiser, went to as a service tech. From there, I went to a delivery driver, to a salesman, to a sales manager, to a channel manager, to a commercialization manager, to vice president. So there's been so many different things that I've done, and I've continuously learned. You speak about, I can go back to what do they call it? The great workforce resignation or something.
Yeah.
Right?
The great resignation.
I think about that, and I think that the thing that, I don't know, people do business with people.
Yeah.
And you still have a job to do. It's not like you're going to wake up every morning and be like, yes, I get to tackle a mountain full of stuff,
It's not what you live for.
No, not at all. But I truly think you have to enjoy what you do, right? You have to enjoy the people that you work with, the people that you work for. And I think of Coke, there's so many different levels that brand touches.
Yeah.
From that food service account, from that large grocery store chain, to that concert event, to that ski resort,
to the gas station across the street.
And I think that's what makes this business so unique, and it has kept me wanting more.
Does it feel corporate? Because and maybe what's the difference too between, because I feel like you've got a unique job where you work for local small businesses, really. I mean, Durango Coke, which is the distributor, and then I forget the name of the other one you were at, but still a local, or an independently owned
independent bottler.
Yeah. But backed by one of the biggest corporations in the world.
Yeah.
What's that like? Or is it separated fully? Like, do you have the corporate feel and vibe, or does it feel more small business?
I mean, you can look at it as a franchise, essentially. So any bottler, we bottle and distribute Coca-Cola brands and products. Then aside from that, you have what they call a producing bottler that actually has production facilities, right? And that was Swire, who I worked with before. There's a handful of large bottlers that are producing bottlers. And then you have the smaller organizations such as ours that, more or less distributes and then manages the local business within
sales, distributions, and service.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So at this level, do you feel pressure from Coke? Like, are there things that, I don't know, that influence like the day to day, like
all the time.
SOPs and stuff like that? Or is it more, is it small town? Is it small business vibe?
I mean, Coke globally is reporting to their shareholders, right?
Right.
And
you got to get it in the door.
It takes everybody. It takes a team, a team of bottlers to get this number across the finish line, right? I'd say I have not met one person, be it, on an executive level or somewhere else within the business that lacks passion for what they're doing.
Yeah, that's cool and unique. I think that's very uncommon.
Yeah.
So many places, especially once you get to that certain size, a lot of people I think are pulling the lever, and I could be wrong, but I think, and I've actually picked that up from the culture of Durango Coke, even just from the projects that we've gotten to do.
Yeah.
It's
been fun.
Yeah. There is a passion, which I got to imagine just helps it's more fun to go to work with passionate people.
Yeah.
It's one of our core values at Ascent Digital, passionate people. It's critical.
Yeah. I was going to think of, passion, people, I think products, is another one of our core. It takes, everyone doing their job, from the people business to the products that we sell, and have passion, to really make things happen. So
do you feel like your kids and your wife, I'd be curious about that too, because I think you definitely had higher odds of joining a community when you moved here. Like, you've got the job, you've got the, and I know that you guys too, you've got a great, church backing and the community there, which is good. But I'm curious, for like your wife and your kids, from a community perspective, if I were to ask them, do you think they would say that they've built a community here?
Oh, I totally think so. Yeah, and it still is continuing to get built out.
Yeah.
For me, she digs on me a little bit. She's like, "Oh, you just come here and you hook up with all your little running buddies and away you go."
Yeah.
You knew nobody on day one, but like 3 or 4 days later, like 20 people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. A little bit of a more direct path, at least for yours. If they had to answer honestly, would they choose to move back or would they stay here?
I think they'd stay.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a.
Did you question that ever?
Place. No.
Interesting.
I mean, right where I lived in Centerville. You know where
Yep.
Centerville is. So I was right there on the bench. It's a little bit of a dry bench, but still close to the trails. I wasn't too far from, going on an epic mountain bike ride, gravel ride up to the top of Francis Peak, which is straight above Lagoon, 5,000 foot ride. You can't beat that over 13 miles.
Right.
Just grinding uphill. But for me, I think the proximity of so many different things to do, it's like, it's just trying to decide what to do that morning.
There's almost too many good things. Yeah.
Do I go for a run? Do I mountain bike?
I was talking to my sister. So my sister and my wife are going to run the Thelma and Louise half marathon in Moab.
Oh, nice.
A trail half marathon in Moab in April. And I was just talking to my sister, like how her training's going and whatever. And she was mentioning that she's having a hard time finding trails. They live in, I forget where they live, but it's South Salt Lake Valley. Like, so anyway. And I was telling her I realized how lucky I am that I leave from work and I have like legitimate good single track trail running from the office.
Right.
Like I can go and do a real run, on my lunch break. And it was a good reminder to me for how lucky we are that we've got it here. So so you were trail running way before the move. Talk to me about that. When did running start? When was who told you to start with 100K?
I actually ran my first. This is a long story, Ben. Buckle up.
I'm ready for it.
So I actually ran my first marathon. It was the Hobble Creek Marathon. You know where Hobble Creek is?
I don't.
It's down, I think it's Springville or Spanish.
Okay.
It's like Springville Canyon area.
Yeah, okay.
So Mapleton-ish. But anyways, they had this Hobble Creek half marathon. That was back in 2007. I'm dating myself just for you. Anyways, I'm like, I'm going to run this half marathon. My sister-in-law at the time, she was training for it. And I'm like, I can do this thing, I'll have to back up. But anyways, so I ran that. It hurt. I'm like, I'm not going to run another one of these. And it took quite a few years before, honestly, I really got back into it. From 2007, I'd say probably 2016, 17-ish. I'd call it like I was a good couch runner.
Right.
I'd go hit 3 to 4 miles 2-3 times a week, maybe,
right.
But nothing big, and I don't want to discount that distance.
Oh yeah. Nothing wrong with 3 and 4 miles a couple days a week. In fact, it's great.
I'd run across someone that was doing 5 miles every day, and I'm like, "Are you crazy?" Not knowing that, there's these bigger distances out there. I mean, obviously knowing there's half marathons and full marathons,
right?
But not really hearing much about like 100 milers.
Or if you are, you're not comprehending it.
No.
Like because I ran my first half in 2014, and anyway, you hear about like ultras, but until you're like, I'm not even sure it even registers like what it is, especially when you're at that stage.
So we did, through work, a good friend of mine, we did like the Ragnar, like Wasatch Back and stuff. That was fun, good time. But I wasn't pushing a strong pace by any means. And then he's like, "Hey, you should come and run like this haunted half down Provo Canyon," right? I'm like, sweet, I'm there. Sign me up. Not a lot of training that went into it, and I finished probably middle of the pack-ish guy, maybe more so towards the end of the middle,
lower third. Yeah.
But I think I pushed like maybe a 9:30, 9:40 pace through that, and then I just mentally, I think I need to start pushing for like my own goals. Not work related, not family related, but Paul related.
Yeah.
And can I do this? Can I achieve these different things? So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go run Boston. And so
Boston was the goal.
Boston was the goal.
The first goal. The first Paul goal.
Yeah, I had like Boston shirts made and stuff. Just to keep it mentally fresh, like this is what I want.
I love that. You literally made shirts?
I did. And it was like a pullover. I'd go running it, Boston 2018, I think is what it said on.
And did you understand what that meant? Like, did you understand the goal you set?
No.
Yeah.
No. And
So you had never ran a marathon ever?
Never. I'd only ran
two halves.
2 half marathons, maybe 3, but never pushing and never
racing,
never training or racing for it.
Yeah. And then you decide Boston.
I'm going to do Boston. My first full marathon I run, I'm going to qualify for Boston.
Get out of town.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
So then I'm sitting there looking at all the
wonder you and Cameron get along so well.
Yeah. Guy's a beast. I'm sitting there, I'm looking through the different times, the paces that you have to hold. And I'll go back to like, don't ever discredit running 3 to 4 miles 2 to 3 times a week, because here I am, running a pace that I felt was good, like a 9:30
like
pace.
I'm running, yeah.
And I'm looking at, okay, Boston qualifying pace for 26 miles, 26.2 miles, right? Can't forget that point two.
That matters.
Is, to qualify, I'd have to get 3:15 or under. And that was, I don't call it like a 7:15 pace or something like that. I think it's actually like a 7:20. But that's the qualifying time. Anybody that's followed the history of Boston, they know that you have to be well under it. 2 minutes, you might get in. 3 to 4 minutes, you got a good cushion, So I did. I ran my first, trained hard. And man, the results that I saw just from, you talk a lot about it, putting in the work, and you see those results. Seeing that 9:20 pace drop to, an 8, and doing some of my aerobic runs, I guess, at the pace I needed to hit, and then running some of those half marathons, at or faster than the pace I needed to hit. Man, I was rolling up to some of these races after training this whole entire time. And I'm like placing in my age group. I'm like, hey, this is great. No longer am I 357th person. Right. I'm like top, well under the 100s and placing in my age group at that time. So one of my fastest races that I ran was the St. George Half. They do it like in January, fun race. But it also gets a lot of fast people.
Right.
It depends on who shows up.
Right.
You think you're going to do good, and then this guy that's been crushing all these half marathons shows up and knocks you out. So anyways, I ended up placing, I think, 3rd in my age group at the St. George Half, and that was like a 1:26.
Wow.
6:40 pace. Like just
flying,
pushing through.
Flying. I want to hear the rest of the story, but I'm curious because you talked about there's kind of like this moment of you needed a Paul goal, like do something for yourself type of thing. And then you started doing it, working on it, and you started seeing the progress and the momentum and like, I don't know, it was working. You were putting in the work and making it happen. Can you walk me through what that felt like outside of running and those chapters. Like I want to hear about what life was like when you needed the Paul goal, that chapter of your life, and then also how it evolved as you started putting in the work and you're working towards this crazy Boston goal. What did the rest of your life look like in those two? Were there changes? Was it the same? How did you feel outside of running? Like, walk me through kind of like the before and the during life.
Maybe it was that midlife crisis, Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You're getting up there. You're getting older, in age, and it seems like the rest of my life was kind of like almost on an autopilot. It's like autopilot's great, but it's not really what I want right now.
Right.
And so I had to shake it up, and that's where I started.
That's where the mistakes
started
happened.
Running. Yeah, big mistakes, big mistakes. But I want to back up on that, because what I didn't tell you is back in early 2000s, I think it was 2004, 2005, I was involved in an industrial accident. And I had a forklift that rolled up the back of my left foot, and it crushed like my navicular bone.
Oh, geez.
So I got like 2 pins and a screw through my heel. When I ran that first marathon in 2007, there's so much pain. I went to so much pain that I thought I created more injury from that accident.
Right.
So I went to my orthopedic at the time, and he's like, well, you got to stop running. You're going to get cartilage on, rub all that cartilage out. It's just going to be bone on bone, which I'm pretty sure that's where it's at now. But
you mean you didn't stop running?
No, I didn't stop running. No, but it's
I hope my mom's listening.
Yeah. Well, it was also pushing through that. You know how it is when someone's out, you'll never be able to do that.
Yeah.
Or, it drives you more. It's like, no, I'll be able to do that. Not to say I feel good with, the accomplishments that I've made with running. I was going to bring you like my boxes of medals. One nice thing about working for Coke is that Powerade also sponsors a lot of races.
Yeah.
So it was like every other weekend I was running a half marathon, I think, and
you're getting to do it for work.
For work.
Yeah.
I think in probably maybe call it 3 year span, I've probably 30 halves.
It's just medals on medals on medals.
8 to 10. Yeah, we could fill this whole wall.
How cool.
But anyways, I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, so the foot injury was, it's kind of been a big deal, and it's something that I still struggle with even in the big races. I'm good for, push through, 15, 20 miles, but then after that, it's that pain just sets in, and
I know the feeling.
Push through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you feel like starting to train for marathon for Boston or the goal of Boston, was that successful in getting your life out of autopilot?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went and ran that race. It's so crazy when you think, and I know there's a lot of fast people out there. Like I think of, the record marathon holder at 4 minutes something seconds a mile.
Right.
It's like, really? But when I ran Mount Charleston, have you ever done that one?
No.
So that's a Revel race.
I know. I don't know if I'm gonna do more. Those downhill races beat me up.
They're rough.
They're fun. They're fast, but I'm at least taking a year off. Of course, I say that. You'll see me at Big Common probably again, but
it's a quad crusher for
yeah.
sure. Well, I ran that, and so I ran it in like 3:13, and I think I needed that year to get into Boston which I haven't ran Boston yet. The goal was to qualify with the intention of actually running it.
Right.
But, I fell short. I hit my qualifying time, beat it, but
it wasn't enough
finished
to
with
get
like
in.
a 3:13:33, and I needed like a 3:12:48.
How crazy. So, but that's interesting. So, because when I ran, I think there's something there though about setting huge goals and almost naively setting them. Like, I'm not sure. Obviously, you knew that you had to run really fast, and like you knew how big of a deal Boston was.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's so far out of reach, really, for most normal people that have had a foot injury, surgeries, and all that stuff. Ran a couple slow half marathons to then think like, okay, I'm gonna, and to be that. I what I think is cool about that is had you not set your goal had you not been that aggressive with your goal setting, odds are you never would have ran even nearly that fast.
Nowhere close.
Like I remember, so when I told you about this beforehand, when I went to Palmer, my goal is my first ever ultra. And I'm like, think I can run 100 miles? And you're like, it depends on the vert. And I'm like, there's none. I can do it. And you gave me a little like vote of confidence that maybe it's possible. And
but you didn't tell me it was hot laps around a lake.
Dude, and I started thinking, okay, maybe I could do it. And all of a sudden I just had that in my mind that for whatever reason, the goal now is to run 100 miles on this first ultra, and I made it to 100. I think I ran 67 miles. I made it like 105K or something like that. Yeah. But I look back on it, I'm so glad that I naively set the sights high because because it made me get as close as I did anyway. You know what I mean? And you still at least qualified for Boston, even if it wasn't enough to get in.
Right.
Like that's, I don't know. I just think there's something to be said for setting crazy goals and then going after them. Because even if you flirt with it, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think you need to set like actionable and attainable goals.
That aren't too big, you think?
Yeah, because I think it's easier. For me, I think I want to learn how to fly airplanes. I can throw that out there. But how realistic is that?
Well, I think that's what makes running cool, though. Is with the exception of injuries and like the stuff that we battle, it's one of the only things in my life that I'm in full control of.
Yeah.
Like everything else, there's so many variables: the market, my employees, the economy, whatever. And I think that'd be the difference between like learning to fly an airplane, for example. There's like, there's a lot of variables there. Yeah. You gotta have the money, you gotta have the flight school, you gotta have access to a plane, like all these things. But you can go run.
Right.
And I think that's why I love running goals. Because you can pursue them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's for me and what it does for me personally, it's like every morning it's a game changer.
Yeah.
If I don't do it, my day's just different.
It's just not the same.
And we've read and heard things, you need to get a good workout, but it just sets you up right. You get the endorphins going and everything else. But yeah, I do agree with you. It's something that's definitely a lot easier than going out and buying an airplane. Right?
Yeah, right.
How cool would that be, though? So
cool. And then we'll make sure to podcast about it. Yeah. But, so do you run every day?
I try to. It's been a little sluggish lately. Right now it's winter time.
Yeah.
So hey, if there's snow, I'm
seeing you skiing. Right? Yeah.
And so, but every morning, I usually start with my buddy and I throughout the week. We're up 5 o'clock in the morning, waking up, usually meeting up by 5:30, get a good hour and a half run in, and then,
and then start your day.
Rinse and repeat.
Yeah. Over and over again.
Yeah.
When did you start looking at distances beyond the marathon?
So I had tried qualifying for Boston, I think 3 times. And every time I qualified.
Right.
I just, it was like that, my gosh. And even this past year, like I thought I was looking forward to seeing, a 3:20 qualifying time or something, but there's just so many fast runners, so they keep pushing it up, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But I tried qualifying 3 times. I'm like, you know what? It's time for a change. And I signed up for a 100-miler.
That was your first ultra, was a 100-miler?
Yeah.
No way.
That's why I told you. It's like, I don't think I told you 100K. I think it was 100 miles.
It might have been.
Yeah.
Your first.
Like, all in.
Tell me about that. So, stage of life, which 100-miler, what made you think that was even a thing?
So
that's crazy.
So I started running. I had a great group of friends that I ran with in Centerville. Most of it was always just road miles. And, I was just kind of tired of the relentless training for them. I mean, it takes a lot to train for either distance. I mean, if you want to be at the top of your game, you're going to have to train hard and do the work. But, for a lot of the road marathons, it was, just crazy amount of time, like speed workouts and constantly doing it. Anyways, I'm kind of done with road. I started trail running with another group, kind of all similar group. Everyone knew each other, and started running trails. And a few of the people that I ran with, they were all ultra marathoners, and I'd just be on the trail listening to them. Oh, like, got this race coming up, and his name's Steve Newman. He's big deal to me. I think he's done a lot of Wasatch 100s, the Bear, things of that sort.
It's a big deal.
Tons of runs out in, Antelope Island and the different marathons there. But anyways, he's kind of like the ringleader of this group, and they called his group the Snorkelers. There's another story to that. But anyways, so he created this running group, and there were just a bunch of cool people that like to run the trails and go big, and go bag peaks. And so that's where I fell into, and so I decided I wasn't going to run any more road marathons.
Right.
No offense to the road marathoners. I'll find my way back there because I'd still like to run Boston.
There's unfinished business there.
Yeah, totally. But that can wait.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm just going to sign up for this Wasatch 100 race. And if I get pulled, I'm in. And so it's a lottery draw. And my first year signing up, my name got pulled.
No way.
So I'm like, time to do the work. Yeah.
And then what?
And so
like what does the family think? What is your wife like? What?
Oh, Ben, but what did your wife think when you told I'm going to go run 100 miles?
I think luckily she didn't fully understand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like until afterwards.
Well, and I didn't understand, and you probably didn't understand going through that whole distance. It's amazing. They all thought I was crazy.
Yeah, so you get drawn, and your first emotion, is it excitement? Is it dread? Is it fear? You're now signed up for a 100-mile race.
It was a mixed bag of both.
Yeah,
excitement quickly led by,
oh shit.
Yeah, depression.
I have to go do this now.
It's like I guess I paid the money for it.
Right. Yeah. Because it's kind of like now there's no turning back.
No. And, that's just not me.
Right.
I failed at a few races recently, but, I'm usually like, I'd say most of the time I'm all in, and I was totally all in for this. And that's the great thing about this other group I fell into, where they were doing these big distances with big vert, and it helped me get the training that I needed to do this race.
Yeah.
So before going from road, and now your average weekly vert distance was, when you're getting close to peaking for the race, for me it was, probably hitting 70 miles and somewhere between that 12 to 15,000 feet of vert, which I felt was adequate. You're just training different. And now the race is like slowly creeping closer, still going out in these massive long weekend runs. That's when my wife really thought I was crazy. She's like, "You're going to do what today?"
And that's a training run?
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to go run 36 miles. I need you to pick me up here.
Yeah. And it'll be between
and bring water.
Long window. Yeah.
And bring food, Coke,
a hamburger.
Yeah. But it was so amazing. And that's one of the coolest things about, I think, running trails and running with people within that community is you get to know people on a different level.
Yeah.
Everybody's, achieving things at different levels, struggling at different levels, and I've made a lot of amazing friends, Anyway, so yeah, then it's race day. You want me to tell you about race day?
Yep.
So the Wasatch, such an awesome race. So it's roughly, I think 25,000 vertical feet over 100 miles.
And it's a point to point.
Point to point. Yeah. It starts in Layton, Utah. And then it goes to Soldier Hollow, which is in the Heber Midway area.
Yep.
So you're basically going up over the Wasatch Range, right? I felt so solid. 110%, 130% going into the race. The race starts off 2 miles in. You're scaling 4,000 feet over 4 miles, so it's like straight up from like, where Lagoon is, and straight up to the top of, I don't think it's quite Francis, but like Thurston Peak area, somewhere around there. Still feeling good, muscling through it. I'm about 28 miles into it. And I talked to you about this a little bit, but 28 miles into it, and I twisted up my Achilles. And, to the point I was running downhill, twisted it up, and then it's like this kind of crazy hobble. It's like, oh man, there's still a lot of race left, Pushed through that. I got to, I think they call it Big Mountain, I think is one of the aid stations. A couple of my buddies met me there. Tried to Band-Aid it up and tape and everything else that we could to keep pushing through. Had another 13 or so miles to go to the next aid station from there. Yeah. And that was at the hottest point of the day. It takes you through, I can't think of Lamb's Canyon area, but basically going up through Parley's I-80 way.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I'd be able to run for like maybe 5 minutes. I'd step on something, it would twist up, and then I was walking for 10 or 15. Then I'd try and do this slight run again. But it progressively got worse over the distance, right? Anyways, made it through the night, Brighton aid station. Now we're going scaling up the mountain, up Brighton. On the backside, I think you're running into like Alta and Snowbird area. Oh my gosh, those trails are horrible. It's just like rocky trail, and my foot could not handle it. It was the worst. I was just still trying to push through, just so determined, because I'd been working on this for such a long time that I'm going to finish.
Period.
I think that's good, and I think it's bad because...
Did quitting ever cross your mind?
Quite a bit.
Like sincerely thinking maybe I need to stop.
Pull the trigger. Yeah, 100%.
Why didn't you?
Family. I had this, knowing what, the amount of time I spent on the weekends, early morning runs, the amount of work and effort that went into it, the sacrifice my family had made for me, in both ways, and the sacrifice that I had made, from a family perspective, but also getting up early mornings and running long weekends. There's only one place I was going to finish, and that was the finish line.
Yeah.
So, this was probably like 70 miles into the race. We're getting to the backside of kind of that sandy Utah area, but on the backside of the Wasatch. Never seen the area before until daylight, and I'm like, I've never been here. This is really cool. That's something that's awesome about trail
I
running.
was going to say that's one of the best things is you go to places you never would go.
Yeah,
on
exactly.
foot too.
Exactly. There's so much out there to see. But 70 miles into it, and my buddy that was pacing me, I'm like, I'm done. I don't care to finish this thing anymore. He's like, man, you can walk it out and you're gonna finish. And the thing is that I was struggling just to walk.
Yeah.
It was so hard. And going on the downhill, I had poles now this time. Anyways, ended up pushing through, got over towards the end of Deer Creek, coming up into Soldier Hollow area. And there's my dad and my two kids, and I saw your video, your movie, and it's like what that type of love just does to inspire you.
Literally giving me the chills.
Yeah. It's the coolest thing. And I'm like trying to hold back my tears, and I'm in so much pain, and I'm like 3 miles away from the finish line, and they're there, and they're like, yeah, go dad. I'm like, yeah, go me. I can't walk. Anyways, they drove out to meet me at the finish line, and I got up to the finish line and crossed, and there's my wife, and the look in her eyes was like, I can't believe you did this, and she knew like the pain that I was
what you just went through,
like, push through it. But yeah, the race director for the Wasatch 100, he's like, so how was it? I couldn't even talk at that point. I'm just starting to get all emotional. I'm like, I can't believe that I finished this thing in the conditions that I had to finish it in.
Yeah.
And then it was, after that is, a good, call it 4 to 5 months before I even dared to run again.
Yeah.
Just because that Achilles hurt so bad, and I didn't want to, flare it up. So that was my first 100. Talk
to me about what impact did that make on you? Like, tell me about like takeaways from that. Cause I don't know that people listening fully comprehend, first of all, what it is to run 100 miles.
Yeah.
Second, what it is to run 100 miles injured. And, like you had to dig. I know how deep you had to dig. Yeah. Like how, and it's so cool. Like when we were talking on the phone, a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, oh my gosh, those stories are so paralleled of the kids and the family, and like, the injuries and the tears. And I did not hold back mine though. I ugly cried for a half a day, but, profound is the only word I can think of for it. And I want to hear from you what it was like after, like the takeaways, or when you reflect back on your first 100 miler, what are your, what do you tell people that it was like? What impact has it had on your life and your family? Like, unpack it for me.
Well, I think, we've had, I don't want to simplify it at all. And I know there's lots of ultra athletes that have, pushed it to a higher level than I'll ever think of pushing it, from your elite people. I've enjoyed seeing some of them on your podcast. So I won't ever discredit like the work that they've put through to get to where they're at. But for me personally, it's believing that you can do hard things, and that's probably my biggest takeaway when I'm faced with a challenge, be it, personal or work related or whatever it might be. It's like, I've been in similar situations. I know that I can make it out of this situation, and I know that the outcome is going to be positive.
Right.
As long as I do the work, keep my head down, and I keep pushing.
Keep moving forward. I love that. So I joke that I've done more for less. I joke about that. But it's interesting. So like right now, my family and I, we're in we're in a chapter right now. Like we bought that Airbnb in Moab in November.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember when we closed on it, I was telling my wife, I'm like, hey, all that has to happen is our businesses stay as is and we're gonna be fine. Well, what happens? But real estate just all but shut down. You know, like her real estate business has slowed up a ton. We basically went for broke on the thing. And, you know, anyway, so we've had this like, well, 6-7 month chapter of like, we're broke and we're grinding and I'm working like crazy. And I was telling her, I'm like, hey, we're just running an ultra.
Yeah.
Like we just, you know, we got to crew each other. We got to stop at the 8, like whatever we got to do, but we'll get through it. Like we've, you know, we can do hard things. Like it's just a matter. And I love that about it, that it's because it taught me that I'm capable of doing that, of like you know, it's not even that hard. You know, it feels hard because we were living in, you know, the financial situations changed dramatically, like overnight and whatever. But it's cool because it's taught me those lessons that then I get to apply in all these other, you know, all these other parts of life.
For
like,
sure.
Just even the fact that we can do hard things.
Yeah.
Like that we're capable of more than we think. What did it change your relationship with your wife or your kids? Did it change your family dynamic?
You know, I think for the kids, for my oldest, he's probably like, wow, you know, dad can, you know, crank out 100, right? But I think for the littler ones, you know, probably not so much. Like, I don't know that they've, like Asher, he's probably getting close
to the like, significance,
like
resonating.
Yeah, you know, because I'll take him on this bad dad moments here, but I'll take him on mountain bike rides that I think he can just absolutely crush. And for me, it's like an absolute failure because he's like suffering through it, right?
Right.
Not that that's happened a lot, but you know, I think he's getting closer to understanding that, you know, he can do those hard things too. You know, we went to Moab and we rode, I want to say it's like Navajo Trail or something. But it was my crew from Centerville, my running buddies, you know, they went down to Moab to ride, and I brought Asher with me, you know, and he's 11. I think that was like a 14-mile mountain bike ride. Yeah, but he just absolutely crushed it, you know, and the next age up was like 18, 19, 20.
Love that.
And
what's that doing for his confidence? Like, is he pumped about it?
He's on cloud 9, but we had a little chit chat. This was a little chit chat. We had a talk. As we went on a ride, and he struggled with it, and you know, it wasn't. I think it was just mentally he was struggling with it. I knew physically he was there, and I'm like, hey, if you want to go ride with the boys, like you're gonna have to push a little harder. Like I know you can do this. Not pushing him out of his comfort zone, but seeing him ride and knowing that he can do these hard things. Right. And next time he was not in the back of the pack, he was in front of the pack. And I'm like, so how was that? He's like, oh, it was awesome. He's like, do I get to go next time? And I'm like, you passed.
You did it, man. You're in. Yeah.
Anytime. Let's go.
I love that. So my boys are wrestling right now.
Yeah.
And I've been telling them that there's 2 rules at wrestling tournaments. Rule number 1 is have fun. Yeah. Rule number 2 is try your hardest. If we do those 2 things, we're stoked with the outcome. Like however it goes, whether we win, lose, draw, whatever. Like if we try our hardest. But I got to imagine that's a cool experience for you to coach up the, you know, because you can see what he's capable of.
Yeah.
And then you get to pull it out a little bit of like, you know, we can dig a little deeper. And then now he gets to see what he's capable of because, you know, because it worked.
Well, I think that's so important because that was something I was thinking about. You know, this kind of goes back to moving here. You know, we're going to go back in our conversation a ways. And I was kind of thinking about that a little bit is, you know, it's important throughout life that you have those mentors, those people that believe in you, and those people that are willing to carry your flag for you, you know, and it's, you know, through your journey and your Buffalo run, You know, it was having your wife there to crew you, having your dad there to crew you. Your buddy was running with you, supporting you. You know, it's so important in life that we have that circle of friends and besties that are going to help us pull us out of those dark moments, you know, because we get in those dark moments, you know, I don't care if you're in a race or if it's work or if it's family, those are some tough moments to get pulled out of. So I think always having that person that's like, just go out there, have fun, and do your best, and we're good.
Right. Yeah. How do you make that happen outside of running? Like, how do you, when you're approaching, whether it's, you know, parenting or your career or, you know, whatever, but how do you make sure that you're surrounded by a good support crew and your kids? Like, how do you?
You know, it's, I'd say for me, not that I know exactly what I want for the last 30 years of my life or 40 years, however long I got left on this planet. But I think I can see my path and I know where I want to go. And, you know, I'm going to surround myself with those friends, those people that I'm going to enjoy being on the journey with.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's
because you bring up such a good point about how important that is, because all it would take, especially in those lows, like my wife and I talk about it often, how funny ultras are. Because any other situation, it's like, hey, we need to take you to the hospital.
Yeah.
You know, like you are ruined right now. And she's like, hey, bye. You know, like I was laughing when I ran Black Canyons last month, and I was throwing myself a pity party at like mile 32 or whatever. I think it was the second crewed aid station. And I was throwing myself a pity party about it was so much harder than I expected. I way under anticipated Black Canyons for what that's worth. Yeah. We could unpack that. But I went into it. I way underestimated that race. But I'm sitting there being like, this is dumb. I'm dehydrated. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. And it's funny because my dad's filming us with his phone, and she goes, this one has electrolytes. This doesn't even acknowledge my complaining. Yeah. Just is like, here you go. And so we were laughing. I'm like, thanks a lot, you know. But it's funny because all it would take, like your buddy at 70, who said you could walk this thing out, man.
Yeah.
Like you can. All it would have taken is him to say, you're right. We should stop.
100%.
And you're done. Done.
Yeah.
Like how critically important that support group is in running and in life. Like, think about that, you know, especially when you're fragile, especially when you're in a down spot, if somebody let you stay down, how dangerous that could be.
Yeah. You know, that's a good point because, you know, I think of that Wasatch 100 and, you know, there's probably like a handful of memorable moments in that race, you know, be it good or bad, the Achilles wasn't a good one, you know, but I sure remembered it, you know, and then having my different friends that have been on this journey with me at different points. And then, you know, my buddy telling me you can walk this thing and you're going to finish, and then getting to the end and, you know, seeing a few other friends along the way. But, you know, it's, I wouldn't have made it through that particular journey had I not had the people with
every
me
last one of them,
that were pushing me along that journey that I was on.
And then doesn't it make you want to metaphorically crew others? Like I after my Buffalo,
I have, yeah.
It's so, and I mean, even like obviously, like I love crewing ultras, but it also like it reminds me because I've always known how fortunate I am. I have a great support system. Like I've got a loving family. I've got an amazing wife. Like I am so blessed in that sense.
She
like
makes good bread too.
She makes great bread, yes. And she's a mean crew chief. Like she crushes it. But you know, and I've always known it and I've always been appreciative of it. But I think until I started running ultras did I like truly understand and appreciate how impactful a support team is beyond that, beyond, you know. And so a lot of what I've been trying to do now is like encourage people and support people and like motivate people, because I've realized in my life how how impactful it is.
Yeah.
You know, and then what's cool is you get a little bit of a positive feedback loop going.
Yep.
Like one of the coolest things, like, you know, I hope you know, I don't have a huge audience. So, you know, when you think you're going to have autographs tomorrow,
You got one.
I do, but I do have, it's turning into a little bit of something, and it's fun for me. Like the average episode gets a couple hundred listens, you know, a couple hundred downloads, and my 100-mile documentary is kind of blowing up, and it's got almost 9,000 views now. It's something wild, but it's cool because now every once in a while I'll have somebody mention that, like, you know, something resonated or a conversation impacted them, or like, you know, that we inspired them. And it's the coolest thing because all it makes me want to do is like keep that momentum going for all of us, you know, like, I don't know, it feeds into each other. And I think negativity could just as bad, and I think does sometimes. And that's why how careful we have to be with who we're surrounding ourselves with. And I love that you mentioned there, like, knowing where you want to head in life, like knowing the path, and then purposefully surrounding yourself with people that you're going to enjoy that journey with. Because it's not the answer I expected. I expected that you'd say that path and then the people that increase the likelihood of getting there. But you said the people that you're going to enjoy it with. Why?
Oh man, you kind of twisted that up a little bit. You know, life's I think life's a lot funner when you're with people that are enjoying it with you.
Yeah.
Right. You aren't always going to run into that person that's going to be, hey, Ben, you stick with me and I'm going to make you top 10 finisher at Hard Rock or something. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I believe you, but I'm not going to enjoy that journey with you, you know?
Yeah.
So I'd rather be with someone that's, hey, like our buddy Cameron, like, let's go do the soft rock and we'll do it over 4 days and we're going to have a blast.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm game. Let's go do it. I haven't figured out the timing, you know, but it's that type of journey and surrounding yourself around those people that are going to enjoy your journey and not so much.
Yeah, but not inhibit it.
Exactly. Not change the direction or the course, but you're out there having a good time with a bunch of friends and you're going places.
That's the thing. The caveat is that it's not people that are like going to hold you back or allow you to sell yourself short.
Right.
But it's people that are going to let it be fun along the way.
Exactly.
and adapt a little bit. Like, I love the idea of the soft rock. I didn't even know that was a thing, but I understand exactly what you're saying.
I'm told
it's
a thing.
That sounds like a blast.
Yeah.
You know, run the whole. Like, I was looking. There's these, like, you can pay for a guided trip at the UTMB course.
Yeah.
But you do it in 5 days, which that's still a big week. It's 5 20-mile days.
Huge.
And you go to the, you know, like the I forget what they're called now. Like the little
cabins, the hostels,
and they got food for you, and you know, you stretch, and then you do it again the next day. I mean, it'd still be a huge week.
Yeah.
Unforgettable. You would run it all in the daylight.
Yeah.
You know, and you get to run the UTMB course. Anyway, I just love that there's a great perspective on it of like, because I think sometimes I tend to be like a little bit too, I tend to push a little too hard sometimes. And like, I think that's a great idea of having people along for the ride or joining people, you know, as part of your community. It's not necessarily getting you off track or off course, keeping you going where you need to go, but like letting you enjoy it a little bit along the way too.
Yeah. I think you got to push, you know, you're a father, I'm a father, you're a husband, I'm a husband, you know, we are, you know, employers, right? And I think in all those different aspects, you have to push,
right?
Or else you aren't going to get where you need to go,
right?
And it's like, and you're bringing everyone with you. Like, let's go. We're going to take the hill, you know, and I'm going to take it with you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit back in the trench and be like, you guys are on your own.
Let me know when you're at the top.
That's, I think, you know, just how important, you know, being surrounded by good people that are going places, how important that is,
Yeah.
in all aspects of life.
And then they hold you accountable. Like, I love that your buddy at 70 is like, dude, we could walk.
Yeah.
Like, we got this. We're not stopping, So, and then so you took then 4 months off. But then when were you like, I'm going to do this again?
I have so much more for you, man. So, it was, like anybody, the minute you get done, you're like, I am never doing
again.
this again. And it's like doom scrolling on your way home through Ultra sign up.
You got the buckle on.
What's next? That bug didn't hit me as quick because my foot hurt so bad.
Yeah.
But after that, my second 100 miler that I signed up for, I haven't done a lot. I like the big distances. I like the big group runs too. Had some amazing adventures with just some large people, but large groups of people. But my second 100 was actually when I came here.
Oh, really?
And Cameron and I went out and we did, what is it? UTMB race in Northern California, the canyons.
Yeah.
That one didn't end up going my way. And that was my very first ever DNF. Out of all these different half marathons, full marathons, different distances,
all the distances, yeah,
50Ks and whatever else. That was my first DNF, and that set me back a little bit. It's
emotionally,
knowing that I could have pushed harder, and I chose to not push. Granted, I think their cutoffs were a little aggressive because it is, from my understanding, because it is a Wasatch States 100 qualifier. They had to change the timings and stuff. So, anyways, I got pulled from that race at 5:30 in the morning. I probably missed it by an hour, but I still, through that night, fighting. I didn't have a crew. The only race I ran with a crew was that Wasatch 100.
There's some importance of the crew there.
There's tough. That's what's so great about the aid stations. You come in and nobody knows you. And
right.
They're cheering you. Yeah, you got this. You got this. But so I've ran that. The second race that I ran was the Kodiak down in Big Bear area. Finished that one. But even then, I was still running by myself. I'm like, I swear on my life right now, I'm at mile 99.5. A car could come by
and I'm
say,
done.
Hey, hop in. I'll take you to the finish line. I'm like, let's go. I have suffered long enough, and I don't need to suffer for this extra half mile, But that's how fragile you get in those distances. And I think it's an important thing to life because you could be so close to the finish, and
I love that.
And you could want to give up even though you're so close.
Right.
I'm 99 and a half. It was probably more like mile 97, 3
but
miles
still.
ago. But, I'm still like pushing 20, 30-minute miles at that point. But you're still like an hour and a half from the finish.
Right. I know it well.
I don't want to.
I know the 30-minute mile very well.
So, those have been some cool races, and there was another race last year that I was okay where I finished. I didn't finish the whole thing, but, I was totally fine with doing what I did.
For 2 years now, you've been telling me you're retired.
Yeah.
Seems like that might not be the truth.
No, I went out and ran this epic race in Madeira.
That looked so cool. What was that one called?
The MUIT.
That looked
Madeira
unbelievable.
Ultra International Trail or something like that. I'm going to do it again.
Cool.
I think next year.
And is that 100K? Or is that 100 miler?
118K.
Okay.
So whatever that is, like 74 miles. But over that 74-mile distance, it was 24,000 feet.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it is literally like straight up, straight down, straight up, straight down these steps. But that island is just so amazing. And that's what drives me to a lot of these ultras.
What you get to see.
Is it's like, I'd love to finish it. That's always the end goal, right? And I'd love it if I could finish fast, but I guess I could make it reality if I wanted to push and train harder. There's some foot issues and things like that, but just being out there and knowing that you're seeing cool things with a bunch of other cool people.
Remarkable things with remarkable people in remarkable places. That's how I describe it.
And you aren't suffering alone.
Yeah.
I ran across somebody and he ran across this a story. What gives you the right to suffer in these big distances? Because I promise you aren't the only one suffering, so you need to step up and just keep pushing.
Love that.
And it's true, and that's why I say I won't ever discount the running, 3 to 4 miles, 3 or 4 days, 2 to 3 days a week, because that's hard.
Yeah.
And it's at different levels, that's hard. I could talk to you about, like my buddy Jose Cruz. He's an amazing runner. He ran, he was first place finisher at Wasatch, not last year before. He was second place finisher at Wasatch last year. He was 15th place finisher at Hard Rock.
Wow.
This guy's just on a whole different level. I'm like, man, he runs so fast. And he does. I went to meet up with him on a group run, and not a group run, it's just him and I. And, I'm thinking he just barely showed up to the trailhead, but, we start running and he's already 10 miles into his run.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And we go and run another, 8 miles. And then I'm like, so what are you doing the rest of the day? And he say, I think I'm going to go get a few more miles. I'm like, how many more? He's like, probably 8 or 10 miles.
Crazy.
But that's just, he's on a different level.
Yeah.
But dude's, the guy's just amazing. But, but thinking, like, I'm sure he struggles being an elite guy. Everyone just struggles differently.
Yeah.
And they have their pains throughout the race.
And the threshold's at a different point.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like whether it's, 100 miles or a half marathon or a 5K.
So you can't ever discredit somebody else's, like your own suffering for somebody else. Oh, they aren't hurting. They're running faster than me. They aren't hurting more than I am.
Right.
Because I call that straight up BS. Yeah. You need to suck it up and you need to push harder. You know what I mean? Like, truly, I think that. So
I love it.
Anyways.
Paul, thank you so much. This has been
this is the end.
This is it. Yeah.
What? I got so many more races to tell you about.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna do it again.
All right, let's do it.
But like seriously, because I could talk to you. I mean, yeah, there's so many other races to talk about. There's so many other parallels with life and all the lessons and all that. Because I know that you're not retired.
No.
You can tell me that you are as much as you want, but I've always known that won't be the case. No, that's great. I want to thank you for, thank you for giving me your time today, for starters. Really appreciate you for that. Thanks for telling me to run, that I should run my first ultra, however many years ago that was. So blame you and thank you for that. But also I want to thank you for the impact that you're making on our community and your, just your involvement with everything and how you're just doing so many good things in so many good different areas. And I hope that it's noticed and it's appreciated and it's refreshing because it's just fun for you've had this kind of like, I don't know, just this calm confidence about you every time I've met you that I'm like this, hyper guy that's highs and lows and you're just stable Paul, it seems like, and I love it. And anyway, I just want you to know that I appreciate it. So I've got our Inspired by Example shirt for you.
Nice.
Because you're inspiring by example, and we will do this again because we got a lot more to talk about. So anyway, I just want to thank you so much. It's been great.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
Awesome.